In what was once a tropical paradise, Trinidad and Tobago now grapples with a storm of crime, unleashing a sinister dance of money laundering, kidnappings, home invasions, murders, and a pervasive cloak of poverty. It's all because of uneven distribution of the nation's wealth, as 1% of the nation population receives and enjoys the nation's wealth. As the nation spirals into turmoil, fingers are pointed squarely at the government, accused of orchestrating a grand fiasco that allows criminal syndicates to flourish. Criminal Symphony, money laundering, hits a crescendo. In a plot worthy of a Hollywood thriller, money laundering has transformed into an audacious art form, with criminal masterminds using the nation's financial system as their canvas. Critics argue that the government's response resembles a poorly directed sequel, allowing the show to go on as illicit funds continue to take center stage. Hostage to fear, kidnappings and home invasions steal the spotlight. Communities now resemble scenes from a horror film as citizens live under the ominous shadow of kidnappings and home invasions. The government, once cast as the protector, now plays a questionable role in this dark drama, leaving residents wondering if they are extras in a chaotic script written by incompetence. Murder on repeat, a daily dose of dread. In a grim turn of events, murder has become a daily feature, turning the nation into a crime-ridden stage where bloodstains paint a tragic backdrop. The government's promises to crack down on criminals ring hollow as citizens brace themselves for the next act of this deadly play, desperate for a plot twist that restores a sense of safety. Poverty takes center stage. A tragic tale unfolds. The backdrop of poverty forms the tragic undercurrent of this drama, with the government seemingly content to play a supporting role rather than tackle the root causes. Critics argue that the lackluster economic performance has transformed the nation into a poverty-stricken set, providing the perfect setting for crime to flourish. Human trafficking, a dark plot twist unveiled. In a shocking plot twist, reports of human trafficking emerge as a sinister subplot, casting a dark shadow over the nation's reputation. Advocacy groups condemn the government for its lack of action, accusing it of turning a blind eye to the suffering of the vulnerable, as if reading from a script of indifference. Demands for redemption. Can the government stage a comeback? As the nation grapples with this riveting crime saga, calls for government accountability reverberate like a drumbeat of change. HCN News.
I have today instructed the National Security Minister to instruct the Defense Force to operate in conditions determined by them within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, to operate virtually permanently on the streets in communities where criminals have armed themselves and have determined that the population is in siege. And I want to say something to the populations who are so affected. Tomorrow you bury your dead. Today you feel your pain. But I know it wouldn't be too long before you begin to complain that there are too many soldiers on your streets and you don't like the police, you don't like the soldiers. As Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm telling you, I prefer to hear you say that than to watch your children being slaughtered in their school uniform.
More complex. In my experience, I have witnessed two main reasons hindering the growth of youth in our community. It was invisibility and lack of opportunities. In my time in law enforcement and growing up on Duncan Street, conversation of visibility was often overlooked in any crime discussion and conversation for betterment within the youth. I also found that no one answered why young persons would resort to crime, guns, and gangs. But what I learned was that
my name is Johnny Abraham, a retired senior superintendent with over 40 years experience. And I can safely tell you that when I was in charge of Central Division, the people could have slept with the house open. I will go on national television and I will warn the criminals to stay out of Central. And if they do come and they leave to tell the story, there's another story. And there is no leadership in the police service. And if the media pick it up and they want to chastise me, they could go ahead. I could stand up and say that anyway. And the reason for that is because some persons went and get elevated because of friendship, because of clique. Correct. I don't want to use all those words. While I was on the ground fighting crime, they were studying. If you don't have a leader, you can't have followers. And without all proper security in a country, you can't have no investment. They have no motivation in the police service. And on top of that, 4%. Under the leadership of Ms. Kamala Pasabi Sessa, 14%. They get it back pay in 6 months. $1,000 extra on their salary. They was motivated more than ever. And I can keep going on and on and on. But the whole thing is that we must take back this country. And in order to do that, the police service have to have proper leadership and persons who are willing to make that sacrifice to work night and day to bring back this country to peaceful. Thank you very much.
Just imagine, Mr. Richard Walcott, one of my constituents brought my attention to the fact that many light bulbs were out of service in the community, pockets of darkness. I gave him the assurance that I will contact TNTech, and I did so and got TNTech to go into that community along with elements of the protective services, because TNTech don't want to go because of the behavior of some of us without security, and they went. And even without security, the brother tells me that a certain gangster in the neighborhood grumbling about light. He don't want no light there. So he had to be ignored, and of course with the presence of the police service, the lights went up, and the larger community, which doesn't support his narrow, selfish pestilence, are quite happy about what was done.
I mean, you tell me, you make a whole hoopla about crime talks, and the Prime Minister not coming to have crime talks with you, and you're going to have your own crime talks in your own party and your own amalgam, and you and your partner can't agree on the same thing. If you can't agree on it with it in your own house, you read it outside, and you expect me to agree with it, and then out of the crime talks comes state of emergency on one hand, on the other hand, declare all criminals terrorists and wipe them out as terrorists. No, that is not a realistic arrangement. But remember, that proposal is coming from a former commissioner of police, who is now a politician, who could tell you, watch you straight in the face and tell you that 2 people who were killed in police custody died because they fall off a chair.
It is said that any publicity is good publicity. That, to me, is the only thing I can think about as to why Kamala Persad-Bissessar would suggest a state of emergency. Her PR team would have chained her up to say something erroneous to keep her relevant in the news, because that is how the opposition judges their success. How many times can Kamala make front page? Well, she succeeded. She made front page with her nonsensical suggestion for a state of emergency. Might I remind the opposition leader that she and her team stood in Parliament and vehemently disagreed with the extension of the state of emergency during the COVID pandemic. In fact, she had people protesting in the sun, and some even got arrested. When the government raised the fuel prices for a 5th time, It might be a lost count when it was. But when they raised fuel prices and persons suggested to the opposition that we need a massive protest, one that will shut the country down and send a clear message, the opposition said that it would be reckless to shut the country down because of the economic fallout. That, in fact, was the reason that we debated and we stood against the state of emergency extension, because the country could not handle it economically. In fact, we on the opposition bench often say that part of the reason for crime being out of control is the lack of economic stimulation, the lack of jobs and opportunities for young people to earn an income in a legal fashion. So tell me, Kamla Persad-Bissessor, what were you thinking to utter those nonsense words? We cannot handle a state of emergency. I know you will get paid regardless. But my husband, he ain't gonna get paid. The young boys who depend on the construction sites being open to earn a decent living, they won't get paid. Think twice, Kamla Persad-Bissessor. I know that you seek relevance at any cost, but we demand better from you. And kudos to Gary. I want to see how long that relationship will last, because we know that Kamla does not appreciate people who cannot be yes men. And I see today that he said no to the state of emergency, and then Kamla saying yes, I defending it. So we will see how that play out. But better than that, Kamla, there are other ways, and Gary has put forward other ways. You have put forward other ways. Use your energy. Get boots on the ground. Find a way. There are other ways other than shutting the country down economically.
Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed by our guests on Workers' Rights 868 broadcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of our program or its hosts. We do not endorse or take responsibility for the accuracy, completeness,
or reliability of any information, statement, or advice shared by our guests. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and seek professional advice before making any decisions based on the information provided during our program. Workers' Rights 868 broadcast is not liable for any loss or damage that may arise from the use of or reliance on the information presented during our program.